There was once a girl in my world. Her name was Sophia. She was my desk mate in high school and the only bright spot in my barren youth. We did the same practice tests under the evening study lamp, chatted about aimless dreams on the playground's horizontal bar, and shared the last skewer of sausage at the barbecue stall at the alley entrance. The feelings back then were as pure as a sheet of white paper. I thought we would go on forever, until the college entrance exam. I failed. And she, with excellent grades, was admitted to Vita University in the South. The distance between us, which had been the length of a single desk, suddenly stretched to over 1,000 kilometers. At first, we still insisted on calling every day and writing letters. But gradually, my paltry living expenses earned from carrying bricks at construction sites couldn't even cover long-distance phone bills. The words in her letters about university clubs, academic lectures, and future plans grew increasingly unfamiliar and remote to me. Inferiority, like a poisonous vine, silently wounded itself around my heart. Finally, after I went out of contact for half a month again because I couldn't pay my phone bill, she suggested we break up. No arguments, no melodrama. Just a short message, full of exhaustion and helplessness. Ethan, we're not people from the same world anymore. Let me go, and let yourself go too. From that day on, I deleted all of her contact information. I buried that memory, along with my ridiculous pride, deep in the ground. I thought that in this lifetime, we would never cross paths again. Until 5 years later, at a dust-choked weekend flea market. By then, my Ethan stall had grown modestly. I would occasionally come to places like this to hunt for interesting old items to decorate my booth. That day, I was crouched in front of a stall, bargaining with the owner Thomas over an old kerosene lamp. Suddenly, a voice, familiar yet strange, sounded behind me. "Boss, this old camera, can it still be used?" The voice carried a trace more maturity and weariness than in my memory, but that distinctive tone, with its slight upward lilt at the end, I will never forget. My body froze instantly. I slowly turned around. In the sunlight, a girl wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans was squatting in front of another stall, holding an old Kodak film camera in her hands, studying it intently. It was Sophia. She was a little thinner, a little darker. The once neat ponytail had become casually loose hair over her shoulders. On her face was a trace of wear, an unhidden world weariness carved by life. But those eyes were the same as 5 years ago, clear, focused, as if two little stars lived within them. Time seemed, at that moment, to be stretched into a long, transparent thread. At one end of the thread was the dusty flea market in front of us. At the other, that summer when cicadas never stopped singing and the heat was relentless. My heart felt as if an invisible hand had clenched it hard, painful and stifling. At that moment, she seemed to notice my gaze and instinctively raised her head. Their eyes met. The air seemed to freeze. The expression on her face shifted from puzzlement to shock, then to an extremely complex mix of embarrassment, awkwardness, and a flicker of panic. The old camera in her hands dropped to the floor with a clack. She even forgot to pick it up, just standing there foolishly, looking at me. And I looked at her clothes, washed until they looked a bit worn, at the pale scar on her wrist that looked like a burn, at the eyes that were no longer as carefree as they once were. Only one thought remained in my mind. These past years, it seems she hasn't lived well. That proud swan who once said, "We're no longer people of the same world." Why does she now appear in this place that even I find a little run down? The shock of reunion is overwhelming. So much so that the two of us feel like puppets whose pause buttons have been pressed, frozen in place, at a loss. In the end, it was the owner of the second-hand stall who shattered the dead silence with an impatient shout. Hey, I'm telling you too. Are you going to buy or not? If you aren't buying, don't block my business." Sophia suddenly woke, as if from a dream. She hurriedly bent down to pick up the camera that had fallen to the ground, a slight, unnatural flush rising on her cheeks. And I almost instinctively turned back and pretended to keep looking at the horse lantern in front of me. But my peripheral vision, uncontrollably, remained fixed on her. I saw that after she picked up the camera, she didn't leave. Instead, she leaned toward the shop owner and quietly began a haggle. "Boss, this camera. Could you make it cheaper? $100, is that okay?" Her voice carried a hint of pleading. $100? What are you thinking? This is an old Kodak. It takes real pictures. Minimum $200, not a cent less. The boss curled his lip, full of disdain. "But I only brought a little over $100 today." Her voice dropped lower, as if confessing something shameful. "Then come back when you've saved enough." I listened to their conversation, and my chest felt clogged with something, both aching and bitter. I remember that in high school, Sophia was one of the girls in our class with the best family background. Her stationery was always the latest model. Her clothes were always clean and pretty. She once proudly told me that she wanted to become a war correspondent, to use the most expensive camera to document the truth of this world. But now, for mere $100, she was groveling and haggling with people in a shabby secondhand market. Who did she pawn her pride to? I can no longer hold back. I stood up, took my wallet from my pocket, pulled out 3 $100 bills, and slapped them down in front of the owner of that camera stall. "Boss, I'll take this camera and that telescope over there that looks like trash." My voice wasn't loud, but it was enough for Sophia to hear clearly. She jerked her head up and stared at me in shock. Her expression was full of humiliation and anger. It was as if my actions were humiliating her in an even crueler way. "Ethan," she almost bit her teeth as she called my name. "What do you mean?" I didn't look at her. I simply pushed the $300 toward the boss. Then, I picked up that old camera and that telescope and tucked them into her arms. Then I turned around and said to the man selling the horse lanterns, "I'll take that lamp too. Name your price." I completed the transaction as quickly as possible. Then, ignoring the look from Sophia behind me that could have pierced me through, I hurriedly left that suffocating place. I walked fast, as if fleeing from something. I walked all the way to the flea market exit, my mind in a tangled mess. I don't know why I did what I just did. Was it to help her? Or to show off? Was it to regain, in front of her, a little of the pitiful self-respect I lost back then? Perhaps both. Just as I was about to hop on my little three-wheeler and make a clean getaway, Sophia caught up. She was out of breath and blocked my car. Her eyes, reddened from anger and running, were bloodshot. She shoved the camera and the binoculars back into my hands with force. "Your money, your things, I don't want them." Her voice trembled slightly, but each word hit my heart like a small stone. "Ethan, I know you become Boss Ethan now, you're rich. But you don't need to, don't use this way to pity me, to remind me of the gap between us. I'm not so fallen that I need your charity." After speaking, she turned and left, without the slightest hint of reluctance. I watched her stubborn, even somewhat fragile, back, and that nameless flame in my heart suddenly surged up. "Sophia!" I shouted toward her retreating figure. Her steps faltered, but she did not look back. "You're not wrong. I do have money now." I laughed bitterly. "I get up before dawn and work late into the night, slogging in grease and over charcoal. Every penny I earn is clean. Why shouldn't I spend it? I just can't stand the way you act. Clearly you're doing poorly, yet you insist on holding on to that ridiculous pride. Do you think you're still that same young miss who wanted the best of everything? Didn't you say we aren't people from the same world? So what are you now?" My words were sharp and cruel. Every single word carried the resentment and grievance I'd been holding in my heart for the past 5 years. I know this hurts, but in that moment, I couldn't control myself. Sophia's body visibly trembled. She stood still in the same spot for a long, long time. So long that I thought she would turn around, rush over, and slap me. But she didn't. She only, in a voice I couldn't quite make out, quietly said something. Then, just like that, without looking back, she disappeared around the corner. I stood there alone, frozen in place. My heart felt empty. It was like having just won a battle, only to realize I had lost more than I had gained. I looked down at the cold, old camera in my hands. In the camera's viewfinder, I seemed to see, 5 years ago, that boy in a white shirt and that ponytailed girl whose smile was like a blooming flower. It turned out we had both changed. Changed beyond recognition. That reunion that ended badly was like a thorn stuck in my flesh, leaving me unable to find peace for several days. During the day, I manned the stall, but my thoughts kept drifting away. Leo noticed my absent-mindedness. "Ethan, you've burned 8 sweet potatoes and given the wrong change 4 times in the past few days," he said as he helped me tidy the mess, watching me with concern. "What's going on with you? Did something happen?" I sighed and told him about meeting Sophia at the flea market. Of course, I omitted that unpleasant argument between us. Leo fell silent after listening. He is my best brother, so of course he also knows Sophia, the girl who once held the most important place in my life. Sigh, he patted my shoulder. "It's been so many years. People always change. I just can't figure out," I said irritably, scratching my head. "Back then, she was the talented girl our town was famous for, got into such a good university. How could she end up like this? What do you think happened to her?" That question hung over me like a huge mystery, circling in my mind and refusing to go away. I even had the impulse to go find her and ask her directly. But whenever I thought of that stubborn, furious look she gave me that day, I backed down again. What right did I have to ask? An ex-boyfriend? Or the new rich man who had once humiliated her with money? Just as I was agonizing over it, an unexpected event gave me an opening. That day, I was sorting through some old clutter in the storage room. By chance, I pulled out a long-forgotten cardboard box. Inside were the relics from the early days of my startup. Among them was a stack of the leftover, missing friend notices printed back then while searching for Leo. I looked at that A4 sheet with a goofy picture of Leo and me, feeling a little sentimental. I casually picked up a sheet, ready to throw it away. But suddenly I noticed that the back of the paper seemed to have something written on it. I flipped it over. On the back was a printed resume. The photo on the resume was of a refined, bespectacled man I did not recognize. But the contents of the resume made my pupils constrict instantly. Job objective: photojournalist/documentary photographer. Educational background: University of Witwatersrand, School of Journalism and Communication. University of Witwatersrand. Isn't that the university Sophia got into back then? My heart leapt violently. I just remembered, when I printed the notice to find friends back then, to save money, I used those single-sided, discarded sheets from the print shop. I immediately emptied that stack of missing person notices. One by one, I looked at their backs. Most of the backs were filled with unimportant documents and advertisements, until I got to the third from last. The back of that paper was also a resume. And this time, the person in the 1-inch photo at the top right of the resume was none other than Sophia. It was her ID photo from when she graduated from university. In the photo, she still wore a trace of lingering youthfulness. Her eyes were bright, her smile confident, full of anticipation for the future. On her resume, her job objective was written clearly: war correspondent, willing to be posted to any region worldwide. My breath stopped. It turned out that she never, ever gave up that dream I once thought was unrealistic. I kept reading. In the awards section, I saw a dense list of prizes from various photography competitions. And in the community practice section, I found experiences that made my heart race. During the summer of my junior year, I went to the Nolan region, which was then in the midst of armed conflict, to conduct a month-long field study in documentary photography. During my senior year, my work, Smiles Under Shelling, won the gold prize at the International News Photography Competition. I read those words, and there was a buzzing sound in my head. I seemed to see a frail girl, carrying a heavy camera on her back, alone, walking through the ruins of a foreign land. I can imagine that, at the moment she pressed the shutter, what rang in her ears was the real thunder of artillery. And what was I doing at that time? I was probably complacent about selling a few more roasted sweet potatoes. I was complaining about the hardships and difficulties of life. The gap between us was never about money. It was about vision, about courage, about that brave and blazing heart of hers that I could never reach. I always thought I was the one she abandoned, that I was the one discarded by that broader world. Not until this moment did I understand. Perhaps, from the very beginning, I had never truly entered her world. I looked at that resume, my fingers trembling slightly. And at the very bottom of the resume, I saw her contact information and home address. Although this resume is already a few years old and the address may have changed, but that familiar street name in Xiqing district kindled a small spark of hope in me. I carefully folded that seeking friend notice, printed with her resume, and put it into my pocket. I knew I had to go once, not to accuse, nor to seek answers. I just wanted to find a place to put my once shallow inferiority and the belated understanding I have now. The next day, for the first time ever, I took a day off for myself. I didn't tell anyone, not even Leo. I simply relied on the address on the resume, alone, and boarded the bus bound for Xiqing district. It was a place I knew very well, yet hadn't returned to in a long time. It was the place where Sophia and I grew up together. Outside the bus window, the familiar streets kept flashing by. The stationery shop we used to go to has been turned into a milk tea shop. The eaves where we once sheltered from the rain together have been painted with flashy graffiti. Time, like a ruthless painter, has brushed a layer of unfamiliar color over all our shared memories. I got off at a dilapidated platform. Following the address after turning this way and that, I walked into a narrow, damp alley. At the end of the alley stood an old apartment building. The plaster was peeling, and the electrical wires hung in the air like cobwebs. The air was filled with a lingering mix of cooking smells and mildew. I found a house number. It was a green iron door, mottled with rust. On the door were a few notices demanding payment for water and electricity bills. They had already faded somewhat. I stood in front of the door, motionless for a long time. I even began to wonder whether I had come to the wrong place. This was completely unlike Sophia's spacious, bright home as I remembered it. I hesitated for a long time, then finally raised my hand and gently knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock. The sound in the quiet hallway seemed particularly jarring. Inside, there was no response. I knocked again, applying a bit more force. Still no sound. A wave of disappointment surged in my heart. Perhaps she really no longer lived here. Just as I was about to turn and leave, a violent fit of coughing suddenly came from inside the room. The cough was hoarse and agonizing, as if she were coughing up her lungs. Immediately after came an old and weak voice. Who is it? My heart dropped. This was not Sophia's voice. It was the voice of an elderly person. The door gave a creak and opened a crack. A graying, tousle head poked out through the gap. It was a face I both knew and found strange. It was Sophia's mother, Mrs. Margaret, but in my memory, Mrs. Margaret was a woman who loved to look beautiful, loved to laugh and talk, and was always neatly and properly dressed. But the woman before me was wearing a nightgown washed until it looked old. Her hair was dry and yellow, her complexion waxen, her eye sockets sunken, and she was so thin she was almost unrecognizable. It was as if she had aged 20 years in an instant. She squinted at me for a long time, then, with a hint of uncertainty, spoke. You are Ethan, MS. Margaret, it's me. My voice was a little hoarse. Having confirmed my identity, no joy of a long-awaited reunion appeared on Ms. Margaret's face. On the contrary, a flash of panic and evasiveness crossed her eyes. She instinctively wanted to close the door. Ma'am. I hurriedly reached out and blocked the door. I didn't mean anything else. I was just passing by and wanted to see how you and Mr. George were doing. At the mention of Mr. George, Mrs. Margaret's body visibly stiffened. Her eyes instantly reddened. She was silent for a long time, then in a voice almost a whisper said, You Mr. George, he's gone. He passed away 3 years ago. Those words hit me like a bolt from the blue, exploding in my mind. I stood frozen in place. I remember Mr. George had always been in good health and ran a small manufacturing shop. How could this be? How could this happen? I murmured. Mrs. Margaret did not answer. She merely turned to the side and let me into the room. The sight inside the room startled me even more. In a small space, all kinds of clutter were piled up, and the light was dim. In the air, besides the musty smell, there was a strong scent of traditional Chinese medicine. In the corner stood an oxygen tank. On the living room wall, in the most prominent spot, hung a black and white photograph. It was Mr. George. In the photo, he still wore a gentle smile. "Sit." Ms. Margaret pointed to a worn sofa, then, trembling, went to pour me some water. I looked at her stooped back, older than my mother's, and felt as if something had pierced my heart. What on earth had happened? And Sophia? Why would she let her own mother live in such conditions? Just then, from the corner of my eye, I caught sight of a small side table beside the sofa. On the table, besides medicine bottles, there was also a photo frame. Inside the frame was a photograph. In the photo was Sophia from college and a man wearing a hospital gown sitting in a wheelchair. The man was smiling brightly, but his legs were empty. It was Mr. George, and the background of the photo was a hospital, a rehabilitation center. I looked at that photo, and a terrible yet most truthful thought suddenly shot into my mind. I looked up toward Ms. Margaret, who was pouring me water, my voice trembling. "Ma'am, Mr. George's leg and his illness. Could it be because of that manufacturing plant?" Ms. Margaret's hand paused abruptly as she was pouring the water. The cup in her hand wasn't held securely. With a paw, it hit the floor and shattered into 1,000 pieces. The warm water splashed and soaked her pant leg, but she seemed unable to feel it. She simply slowly turned around and looked at me. Those cloudy eyes held years of unspoken pain and grievance, and in that moment, finally, they broke the dam. Tears streamed down Ms. Margaret's face like beads from a snapped thread, silently and violently. She didn't make a sound as she cried. She simply stood there, her body shaking violently from suppressed sobs. It was a kind of despairing sorrow that comes from life having worn away every edge, so that even crying aloud feels too daring. I stood there helplessly, feeling like a cruel executioner who had personally ripped open a family's most bleeding wound. I walked over and helped her sit down on the sofa. I pulled a few tissues from the coffee table and handed them to her. She took them and wiped her face in a mess, but no matter how she tried, she couldn't stop the steady stream of tears. "Ethan, She finally spoke. Her voice was hoarse, as if sanded. "It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's all over. It's all over." She kept repeating that sentence, as if comforting me, and more like numbing herself. Seeing her like that, my heart ached as if cut by a knife. I didn't ask any more questions. I just sat quietly by her side, keeping her company. Sometimes, silent companionship is more powerful than any pale comfort. After a very long time, her emotions finally calmed a little. As if she had made up her mind about something, she lifted her bloodshot eyes and looked at me. "You want to know, don't you? All right, I'll tell you everything. For the next hour, MS." Margaret, in a tone that was almost numb and calm, told me about all the changes and misfortunes that had befallen the family over the past 5 years. It was a story far more cruel than I had imagined. Right after the college entrance exams, on the very day Sophia received her university acceptance letter, her father's small manufacturing workshop caught fire due to an accidental short circuit in the wiring. The fire consumed all their savings and merchandise. Even worse, Mr. George, trying to save the last remaining property in the factory, had his legs crushed by a falling beam. From then on, he was paralyzed from the waist down. To pay for her husband's treatment and not to jeopardize their daughter's university education, Mrs. Margaret sold the family's large house and moved into this dilapidated old building. She worked multiple part-time jobs by herself, washing dishes in a restaurant during the day and working as a nursing assistant in a hospital at night, trying with all her might to keep this shaky household afloat. And they concealed all of this from Sophia, who was far away in the South. On the phone, they always told her that everything at home was fine and that the factory business was very busy. They didn't want her to be distracted. They hoped she could focus on finishing her studies and pursuing her dreams. That child has been stubborn since she was little, with high ambitions. Mrs. Margaret wiped her tears, a trace of bitter pride in her voice. If she knew, she would definitely quit school and come back right away. We can't ruin her future." Until his junior year, Mr. George's condition suddenly worsened. Complications, along with long-term depression, completely broke down this once strong man. The hospital issued a critical condition notice. MS. Margaret really couldn't keep it any longer, so she told Sophia everything over the phone. She got the call and ran back from school that very night. I still remember. She burst into the ward, and when she saw her father's condition, her expression, Ms. Margaret couldn't continue and started coughing violently again. I can imagine it. What a kind of despair it was, like the sky falling and the earth collapsing. From that day on, Sophia's life was forcibly put on pause and, moreover, set on a different course. She never returned to school. She took a leave of absence from school, gave up the chance to study abroad as an exchange student, and also abandoned her distant dream of being a war correspondent. Overnight, she went from being the favored daughter, sheltered by her parents, to the pillar of this household. The first thing she did was come to me and ask for a breakup. She told me, MS. Margaret looked at me, her eyes full of apology. She said, "Mom, I can't keep dragging Ethan down. He's already suffered enough. Right now, we're a bottomless pit, and I can't pull him down with me." She said, "Long pain is worse than short pain. Let him hate me. It's better than letting him suffer with me." Hearing that, my heart felt as if a hand had crushed it mercilessly. I finally understood how profound and how cruel the tenderness was behind her message. We're not people from the same world anymore. She wasn't abandoning me. She was protecting me. And I, that self-righteous fool, resented her for a full 5 years because of it. What followed was even heavier. Sophia, in order to raise the exorbitant medical fees, began working frantically. She carried plates in restaurants, handed out flyers at shopping malls, and shouldered cement at construction sites. She took any work that could earn money, no matter how bitter or exhausting. Her hands, which should have been holding a camera and recording the world, were prematurely covered in the dust of life, worn into thick calluses. The scar on her wrist came from when she was helping in a kitchen and was splashed by scalding oil. 3 years ago, Mr. George still couldn't pull through and passed away. Before he died, he took Sophia's hand, and his sole dying wish was that she return to campus and finish her studies. Sophia agreed. She used the money she had saved from working and what she borrowed from relatives to pay off most of the debt, and then returned to the university she had been away from for 2 years. She works harder than anyone else. She wants to make up for the time she lost. And she really did. She won awards, did internships. That polished, impressive resume of hers was put together during that period. But reality is cruel. When she graduated, full of hope and eager to pursue her dreams, she discovered that because of her age and that gap during her leave of absence, many top media organizations had closed their doors to her. And those willing to take her on offered positions and salaries that simply couldn't support her in repaying the remaining debt and caring for her increasingly ill mother. In the end, she gave up those seemingly respectable jobs. She chose the hardest but quickest paying job at a commercial photography company, working through the night as a retoucher. Every day, she faced the computer screen, turning one mediocre photo after another into glamorous catfish images. With the eyes that should have discovered beauty, she was doing the very work that strangled it. Her dreams, her talent, that proud heart of hers were, bit by bit, worn away by the monotonous repetition day after day and the heavy pressure of life. She's still doing that photo editing work. Mrs. Margaret sighed at length, her voice full of tenderness for her daughter. Every night, she stays up until 2 or 3. The money she earns, besides paying off debts, is for buying my medicine. She never treats herself to anything. Yesterday was her birthday. She thought she'd go to the flea market and pick up a cheap old camera as a birthday gift for herself. She never expected to run into you. When I heard that, I could no longer hold myself back. I lower my head and cover my face with my hands. A warm liquid kept seeping out through the gaps between my fingers. I wasn't crying. I just felt like my heart was aching as if it were about to break. It turned out the price of truth was so heavy. By the time I left MS. Margaret's house, it was already dark. I walked through the alleys of Xiqing like a lost soul. In my head, Ms. Margaret's suffocating tales kept replaying. My heart was filled with a vast and complex emotion. There was regret, aching concern, anger, and also a deep disdain for my own past childishness and ignorance. I hated myself. Why back then I didn't have a bit more courage to ask, to probe. I felt for her. Why did she have to bear all the pain alone, silently? I am furious at the injustice of fate. Why must so many hardships be heaped upon such an exceptional girl? I walked, and before I knew it, I had come to the gate of our high school. School had already let out, but through the iron gate, I could still see small pinpricks of light shining from the teaching building. Those were probably the graduating classes doing evening study sessions. I feel as if I can see us from 5 years ago. I can see her who always poked my back with a pen whenever I nodded off. I can see her who, after I flunked a test, clumsily comforted me by saying, "It's okay, try harder next time." Back then when she smiled, there really were stars sparkling in her eyes. And now, that starry sky was tightly shrouded by the dark clouds of life. I leaned against the wall at the school gate and took a cigarette out of my pocket. I rarely smoke, but today I needed nicotine to numb the nerves that were about to explode. I lit the cigarette and took a long drag. The acrid smoke made my eyes water. What am I supposed to do? Rush up to her and say, "I'm sorry, I knew everything"? Then what? Give her a sum of money and tell her, "I'll support you from now on"? No, that's not help. That's a deeper kind of humiliation. With her personality, she would absolutely not accept it. That would only push her even farther away. I can't hurt her a second time with that same self-righteous, foolish way. I have to think of another way. Something that would let her accept my help without hurting her pride. Something that would let her pick up her camera again and regain that pawned sense of pride. I crouched by the roadside, smoking one cigarette after another. My mind was a tangled mess. Just then, a delivery guy in a yellow t-shirt sped past me on an electric scooter. The familiar box on the back of his bike, stamped with Yobu One, like a flash of lightning, suddenly lit up my muddled thoughts. Takeout, right? Takeout. I sprang to my feet, threw away the cigarette, but in my hand, and stamped hard to crush it. Then I took out my phone and opened the food delivery app. I wasn't going to order food. I was going to deliver food. I found the commercial photography company where Sophia was working. The address was one I had seen on that resume. In the Pring building downtown. Then, near that office building, I found what looked like the fanciest, top-rated upscale sushi restaurant. I ordered the most expensive-looking, most refined single-serving sukiyaki set, including top-grade snowflake beef, a platter of fresh vegetables, and a warming bowl of miso soup. In the order remarks, I wrote a few lines. "Delivery guy, please. This meal must be delivered at exactly 10:00 p.m. to floor 17 of Prin Building, to the Light and Shadow World Photography Studio. Recipient, Miss Sophia. Also, please use a marker to write one sentence on the takeout container lid for me. Happy 23rd birthday. Lastly, and most importantly, please tell her that this takeout is a belated birthday gift from an old classmate from 5 years ago who wishes to remain anonymous. Thank you for your hard work. The tip has been paid." I typed out this passage in one go. Then, without hesitation, I paid the hefty bill and a large tip, enough to make the delivery guy willing to take care of it for me. After doing all this, I let out a long, relieved breath. In my heart, the huge stone that had been blocking me seemed to have shifted just a little. I knew a single delivery couldn't solve any fundamental problems. But at least, tonight, in this lonely late hour, when she will be staying up late to work again, she can have a steaming, slightly warming meal. And a birthday wish that arrived 5 years late. Go tell her that in this world, there is still someone who remembers her. Someone else, in a clumsy way, is silently caring for her. That is enough. As for the future, as for how to get her to pick up the camera again, I already have a preliminary, bold plan. My plans sound a bit crazy, even somewhat whimsical, but this was the only way I could think of that would help Sophia without injuring her stubborn pride. The next day, I returned to my Ethan's stall. The first thing I did was set up a new activity sign in front of my stall using a fresh small blackboard. On the sign, I poured all my artistic talent into drawing a simple camera logo, and beside it wrote a few large lines. Ethan Stahl, Smile Project, Season 1. In search of 1,000 faces in the night market. Event details. Starting today, any customer who makes a purchase at our shop may, if you wish, allow us to take your smiling photo in the night market. We will invite a mysterious independent photographer to capture these most genuine and moving moments for you. 1 month later, we will select the most outstanding 100 smiles and hold a small night market smiles exhibition. Everyone selected will receive a super VIP annual pass to our shop. We believe every ordinary smile deserves to be recorded. As soon as the event sign went up, it immediately drew everyone's attention. Even Leo came over, curious, and asked, "Ethan, what act are you putting on now? Even got yourself into a photography exhibition." I smiled, without explaining much. I knew this was only the first step. Next came the second step, the most crucial one. I need a persuader. Someone who can make Sophia unable to refuse. Once again, I dialed the influencer Chloe Bennett's number. I told Chloe Bennett my entire plan and Sophia's story, word for word. Of course, I omitted that we were lovers and only said she was a very talented but life-weary high school classmate of mine. Chloe Bennett, having listened, was silent on the other end of the phone for a long time. I could even hear her somewhat suppressed sniffing. "Mr. Ethan," she began, her voice a little choked. "I used to think I had seen much of life suffering. But after hearing your classmate's story, I realized the real pain is often the kind you can't put into words. This plan of yours is wonderful, truly wonderful." She suddenly became excited. "Don't worry, I'll take care of this matter. Weren't you looking for a mysterious freelance photographer? Is there anyone more suitable than herself? Weren't you searching for 1,000 faces? This is tailor-made for her, the best rehabilitation exercise. To make her pick up the camera again, rediscover beauty, and rebuild her connection with the world. This is so meaningful. Mr. Ethan, rest assured, I will, with my utmost sincerity, persuade her." With Chloe Bennett as our ace lobbyist, I felt reassured. Chloe Bennett's initiative exceeded my expectations. That very night, she obtained Sophia Company's address and contact information through friends. She didn't go to see Sophia directly, but used a smarter approach to make her move. She, posing as a major client, specifically named Sophia and asked her to shoot a set of promotional photos for her studio. Sophia's company, of course, could not refuse that request. When Sophia appeared before Chloe Bennett, exhausted and wearing that formulaic professional smile, Chloe Bennett did not talk to her about work, but instead placed a photo of our Ethan Stahl signboard with the Smile Project logo and her viral article about Midnight Diner together in front of Sophia. Then, Chloe Bennett looked at her and said very seriously, "Miss Sophia, I know you. I know your work, and I know your talent. So, I'm not here today to ask you to shoot those same old commercial photos. I want, in my capacity as the curator of Chloe's shop visits, to formally invite you to become the sole designated photographer for our Smile Project. I don't need you to work for free. We will pay you according to the highest standards of commercial photography. This is what you deserve. I have only one request." Chloe Bennett paused, looked at Sophia's eyes, slightly widened in shock, and spoke each word deliberately. "I want you, with those eyes of yours that once captured smiles under fire, to photograph for us 1,000 ordinary and genuine smiles from this night market. Will you?" Chloe Bennett's invitation, like a stone thrown into a stagnant pool, stirred enormous waves in Sophia's heart. Later, Chloe Bennett told me that when Sophia heard the words, "with those eyes of yours that once captured smiles under fire," she froze completely. It was the memory she was most proud of, and yet the one she dared least to touch. It was the starting point of all her glory and dreams, and also the root of all her pain and loss. She did not expect that, after so many years, in this place where she had long given up on her dreams, there would still be someone who remembered the light she once shone. She was silent for a long time. So long that Chloe Bennett almost thought she would, like she had refused me, stubbornly refused this job. But in the end, she simply looked up and, in a voice almost like a whisper, asked, "Why me?" Chloe Bennett smiled. She said, "Because I believe that someone who can find a smile amid the cannon fire can surely catch the most touching light in the simplest fireworks." Those words completely shattered the last of Sophia's psychological defenses. She agreed. There was no discussion of payment, nor of terms. She simply, gently nodded. That weekend, she came to my stall for the first time in the capacity of a photographer. When she arrived, the sky hadn't darkened yet. I was preparing the stall's ingredients with Leo. She wore a neat, clean set of sportswear and carried a backpack that looked quite old. Overall, she seemed much more lively than when I last saw her at the flea market. But her eyes still carried an unmistakable trace of nervousness and insecurity. Like a soldier about to go to battle, rusty from long absence. "I'm here." She walked up to me and said quietly. I nodded, pretending to be casual, handed her a bottle of water. "Good job. Rest for a bit. Start again when it gets dark." She took the water but didn't drink. She simply walked to the side and, from her backpack, took out a camera. It was a DSLR that looked very professional, but the body was covered with signs of use. And on some edges and corners there were even dings and worn spots with rust. I knew this was probably the best equipment she could pull out right now. She took out the camera, but did not start adjusting it immediately. Instead, somewhat awkwardly, even to the point of being unfamiliar, she rubbed it back and forth in her hands. That feeling was not like that of a professional photographer. More like someone timid, reunited with an old friend lost for years, unsure how to start speaking. I looked at her like that, feeling a little sour in my chest. I knew that over these 5 years, the day-after-day photo retouching work had made her hands unfamiliar with the feel of a camera. She needed time to find that feeling again. The sky was gradually darkening. The night market began to get lively. A long line formed in front of my stall. Many customers came specifically for our smile plan. "Boss, I heard you give a VIP card for taking a photo here. Is that for real? Quick, take a picture of me. I want the kind where I look my absolute best." I kept busy roasting sweet potatoes and replied with a smile, Don't rush. Our photographer is getting into the groove. Everyone warm up your expressions first." I deliberately used a relaxed, joking tone to try to ease Sophia's nerves. But she didn't seem to be doing well. She raised the camera toward the crowd and took a few test shots. Then she frowned, looked at the display, kept deleting, and kept shaking her head. Her hands were trembling slightly. A fine sheen of sweat had formed on her forehead. I can feel her anxiety. She can't find the feeling. Those eyes that used to see through people are, at this moment, clouded by a thick layer of rust. She doesn't know how to compose, doesn't know how to capture light and shadow, and doesn't know how to direct the photograph person to reveal their most natural expression. She was like a once peerless master who had lost all his martial prowess. Still possessing the skill to slay dragons, yet unable even to lift a sword. Time passed, minute by minute, second by second. The guests waiting in line for photos began to grow impatient. "Hey, are they ever going to finish taking pictures? Is this photographer any good? If not, get a different one." Those comments, like needles, pricked at Sophia's ears and at my heart. Her complexion grew paler and paler. The hand holding her camera drooped. I know she's about to break. She's about to be completely crushed by this enormous pressure and by her own self-doubt. I'm more anxious than anyone, but I know that right now I can't hurry her, and I certainly can't try to comfort her. Any verbal encouragement would only become greater pressure for her. I must, in my own way, help her and resharpen that rusty sword. I took a deep breath and suddenly shouted loudly at the crowd. Everyone, quiet down." Everyone fell silent and looked at me. I pointed at Sophia and said to everyone, "Don't rush. This woman is not an ordinary photographer." The camera in her hands once faced real gunfire and battlefields. And what she records through her lens is the most precious smiles that bloom in the harshest of conditions. Today, she just needs a little time to adjust to our little corner of peaceful, happy fireworks. So, I have a suggestion. I looked at everyone, smiled, and then turned my gaze towards Sophia, who was already almost burying her face in the ground. Today, we're not shooting. Tonight, every one of us will be her model. We won't look at the camera. We'll eat, drink, laugh, and make a ruckus as we should. We will present to her the most real, unvarnished night market life. And she, I said, pointing at Sophia, word by word, only needs to do one thing: move among us like a ghost. Then, at the moment she thinks is most touching, quietly press the shutter. We won't bother her. Let her, on her own, reclaim that hunter's instinct that once belonged to her. My words were like a warm spring breeze, dispersing the dark cloud called pressure that hung over Sophia's head. They also immediately quieted the nearby guests who had been growing impatient. They looked at me, then at Sophia, who was curling into herself, and gradually their expressions softened into understanding and kindness. All right, the boss makes a good point. Isn't it just being a model? No problem. Shoot however you want. Girl, don't be nervous. Just treat us like air. They all jabbered together, expressing their support in the simplest way. Sophia shot her head up, looking at me in disbelief, then at the unfamiliar faces around her who were smiling at her. There was something flickering in her eyes. I nodded at her forcefully, giving her an encouraging look. Go. Don't overthink it. Follow your feelings. She looked at me, her lips moving as if she wanted to say something. But in the end, she only took a deep breath and swallowed all her words. She nodded at me, heavily and decisively. Then she lifted that rusted camera again. That night's night market presented a peculiar sight. Sophia really looked like a ghost. She carried that old backpack, weaving through the noisy crowd, blending into this scene full of everyday life. She no longer deliberately sought the camera, no longer guided the model's expressions. She is just looking, observing. She watches the warm steam that rises when I hand a roasted sweet potato to a guest. She watches Leo's focused, honest profile as he filters the soybean pulp for soy milk. She watched Mrs. Emma Wilson, who sold spicy thick soup, and the hearty, uninhibited laughter she gave when handing a bowl to a customer. She watched a young couple cuddled together, sharing the same skewer of grilled sausages and the sweet, cloying looks in their eyes. She watched a student who had just finished evening study, wolfing down fried rice, and the satisfied, pure happiness on their face. She turned herself into a pair of eyes, a pair of greedy, thirsty eyes trying to feel the warmth of this world again. At first, her movements were a bit hesitant. She would lift the camera, hesitate for a long time, then put it down. But gradually, the sound of her pressing the shutter began to grow more frequent and more decisive. Click, click, click. The sound was crisp and resolute, like a hunter long asleep, slowly regaining the keen instincts hidden in his blood. She was no longer a passive recorder. She began actively to capture those fleeting, moving moments. She would, without hesitation, squat on a floor stained with grease for the sake of a good angle. She would stand completely still for 10 or 20 minutes in front of a stall, waiting for the perfect light and shadow. She would even chase a child around half the night market to capture an innocent smile in a candid shot. Her eyes grew brighter and brighter. She radiated a focused, enchanting glow I had never seen before. It was the unique light that belongs only to someone who has found their self-worth through work. That night, how many photos she took, I do not know. All I know is that when she finally dragged her tired body back to my stall, on her face that always carried a hint of gloom, for the first time, she showed a heartfelt, relieved smile. She handed me the camera. Her voice had a touch of hoarseness and an unmistakable excitement. Ethan, you look. I took the camera and opened the playback. One by one, I flipped through the spoils of her night. I'm not a professional photographer. I don't understand composition or lighting. But I was completely stunned. Under her lens, Mr. Michael Brown, the fruit seller, his facial wrinkles like the ravines of the earth, full of the vicissitudes and strength of time. Ms. Emma Wilson, always dressed up in flamboyant finery, the smile at the corner of her eyes like a blooming rose, passionate and uninhibited. Mr. Thomas, The barbecue man who always loved to brag. The smoke rings he blew carried a hint of wandering poetic charm under the lights. She photographed these most ordinary, most commonplace people, and gave them the texture and narrative of film protagonists. What she captured was not just their faces, but also those things on their faces about life, about hardship, about optimism, about hope. The truest and the most moving emotion. I flipped to the last photo. That photo was of me. In the picture, I was bowing my head, intently picking a roasted sweet potato out of the scorching stones. The light of the hearth fell on my profile, tracing my contours warm and soft. The corners of my mouth lifted slightly, carrying a hint of contentment I hadn't even noticed myself. It was a version of myself I had never seen before. Focused, calm, and filled with a love for this work. I looked at that photograph for a long time, unable to speak. I finally understood just how remarkable her eyes truly were. They could see through every appearance, directly to a person's soul deep within. "How is it?" Sophia asked, looking at me a little nervously. I lifted my head and looked at her bright eyes, the ones whose flames had been rekindled. I smiled. I laughed from the heart. "Sophia," I said, "welcome back. My best war correspondent." The Smile Project was a great success. Sophia had completely recovered her hunter's instinct. She was like a fish returned to the water, reborn with astonishing vitality. Every day, she carried that rusty camera on her back, weaving through the night market. She had become one with every vendor and every customer. She could accurately call out the name of the aunt who sold cotton candy, and she remembered which nearby university the young man who loved spicy roasted flatbread attended. Her lens was no longer cold. It became full of warmth and emotion. And our relationship entered a whole new, delicate phase. We were no longer awkward exes, nor merely employer and employee. We were more like comrades fighting side by side. The most taciturn partners for each other. I would, every single day without fail, prepare that staff meal for her. And she would, occasionally, when I was overwhelmed with work, very naturally take the tongs from my hand and help me pass the roasted sweet potatoes to the customers. We still didn't speak much, but sometimes a shared glance, a knowing smile, will be enough to outweigh 1,000 words. I never brought up her family again, nor did I try to help her with money. I simply, in my own way, created for her an environment where she could create in peace and rely on her own talent to stand back up. A month later, the Smile Project had collected over 3,000 photos. Each one was a vivid, moving story. Chloe Bennett, Sophia, and I selected 100 of the most outstanding work from the lot. We rented a small patch of ground in the central square of the night market. Using the simplest display boards and lighting, we put on the event we had agreed on, the Night Market Smiling Eyes exhibition. On the opening day of the exhibition, the entire night market was in an uproar. Everyone who was photographed, and those who weren't, surged forward. They stood before those photos, looking for themselves, for their neighbors, for their friends. On those ordinary smiling faces, they saw their own reflections and also the truest, most endearing side of life. "Look, that's me. Ha ha ha. The picture makes me look even handsomer than I am. Ms. Emma Wilson, your smile is so unrestrained. My God, I never knew my boyfriend could look so devoted when eating skewers." The whole square was filled with rising and falling exclamations and laughter. It was a kind of heartfelt, pure joy. And Sophia, as the creator of this exhibition, was surrounded by everyone at the center. She was no longer that timid, self-conscious girl. Wearing a simple white shirt, confident and composed, she told everyone the story behind each photograph. There was light in her eyes again. That kind of light that can illuminate the whole world. At the end of the exhibition, Chloe Bennett, as the host, handed the microphone to me. She smiled and said, "As the initiator of this event, does our Mr. Ethan have anything to say?" I took the microphone and looked at the joyful, boiling sea of people before me. Looking at her, Sophia, who was smiling at me in the crowd. 100 feelings surged within me. I cleared my throat and slowly began to speak. Actually, When I first started this project, it was for a very selfish reason. I want to find someone. My words silenced everyone. I took from my pocket a sheet of paper, neatly folded by me. I unfolded it. That was 5 years ago. The missing friend notice I printed while looking for Leo. And on its back was Sophia's resume, filled with honor and dreams. I held up that piece of paper to everyone, and to Sophia, who wasn't far away. 5 years ago, I lost someone. I thought it was because I wasn't good enough, that I didn't deserve her dazzling world. I spent 5 years working hard, trying to turn myself into a so-called successful person. I thought that once I had money, once I had ability, I could get back everything I had lost. Not until recently did I realize how ridiculously wrong I was. What I lost wasn't her. What I lost was myself. It was my courage, the part of me that dared to admit I'm not okay in front of her. It is my kind of true love, the kind that, while she chases her dreams, quietly bakes a sweet potato for her. My voice was a little choked. I looked at Sophia. Her eyes were red too. Today, I took a deep breath and turned that missing friend notice over to the front. I want to once again post a missing friend notice. This time, the one I'm looking for is not someone else. It's that proud girl who, 5 years ago in university entrance exam room, dropped her pen out of nervousness and stubbornly refused to let me pick it up for her. It's the brave reporter who would hoist a camera and rush into the gunfire for a complete stranger she had never met. It's the kind fool who would rather bear all the suffering herself and protect me with the words, "We're not people of the same world anymore." Sophia. I looked at her, and word by word, spoke what I had wanted to say for the past 5 years. I don't know whether I now have the right to walk back into your world. All I know is that my world can't be without you. So, would you still be willing to give me one more chance to bake sweet potatoes for you for the rest of my life? Well, my voice fell silent. The whole world went quiet. Only Sophia remained, unable to hold back anymore, a vigorous nod mixed with tears and a smile. "George, I've got good news and bad news. Which do you want to hear first?" I put down my paintbrush and looked at my friend Frank. He stood at the studio door with a mysterious air, his face a mix of nervousness and excitement. "Let's start with the bad news. After all, I've gotten used to it these past 3 years. Your painting, Eternity, just sold for a sky-high price. Over $6 million. I frowned. "How is that bad news?" Frank chuckled. "Because it's actually part of the good news. The bad news is, buddy, you might need to see a psychiatrist." "What do you mean?" "A woman who looks exactly like Mary showed up at your art exhibition." I almost thought I was seeing a ghost. The paintbrush slipped from my hand and fell to the floor, splattering paint across the unfinished canvas. "Mary, my late wife, died 3 years ago after accidentally falling off a cliff. I watched with my own eyes as her body was pulled from the water. In that moment, my world completely collapsed." "Stop joking around, Frank. Why would I lie to you? She even left this." Frank handed me a note, with an address and a time written on it. My hand trembled slightly. The handwriting was exactly the same as Mary's. That night, I waited until midnight at the designated cafe. Just as I was about to leave, a familiar figure appeared at the door. Mary? No, it couldn't be her. But every gesture of that woman, from the tips of her hair to her fingertips, was a shadow of Mary. "George, it's been a long time." She sat across from me, and the familiar voice nearly made my heart stop. "Who are you?" I struggled to remain calm. "I'm Mary, your wife." She smiled and reached out her hand. There was a scar on her palm, the mark Mary got when she accidentally cut herself on glass at 15. "Impossible. Mary is already dead." She laughed softly. "That was just an accident. I fell off the cliff and was saved by a reclusive old doctor. I lost my memory from the injuries and only recently remembered everything." As she spoke, tears began to fall with an expression I knew all too well, the look Mary wore whenever she felt wronged. "I know it's hard to believe, but I really am Mary." I couldn't believe my eyes. The shade of lipstick Mary loved most, the faint little mole beneath her left ear, the unconscious habit of rubbing her ring while speaking. Everything was so familiar. Are you really Mary?" She nodded and took a small box out of her bag. "This is the proof." Inside the box was the first piece of jewelry Mary ever designed. A sapphire ring, the only one of its kind, never mass-produced. I brought it with me that day because I wanted to surprise you. I suddenly stood up and pulled her into my arms. 3 years of longing surged over me like a tide. I held her tightly, afraid that if I let go, she would disappear again. On the way home, she told me about her experiences over the past 3 years. She was rescued by an old doctor in the mountains, lost her memory due to a severe head injury, and lived in a remote mountain village for more than 2 years. It wasn't until she happened to see a poster for my art exhibition that her memory gradually returned. The next day, I took her to see Frank. "Oh my God, it really is you, Mary." Frank stared in astonishment, eyes wide. "Frank, it's been a long time." She greeted him with a smile, exactly as I remembered. Frank pulled me aside and whispered, "Man, this is unbelievable, but I really believe it's her. Who else but Mary could call me by my childhood nickname so accurately? That was something only the two of you knew." A week later, Mary officially returned. We held a small welcome party for her. Her mother was so overwhelmed that she fainted, and when she woke up, she clung to her daughter and refused to let go. But that night, I noticed the first sign that something was off. Mary never ate mangoes because she was severely allergic. Yet the returned Mary absent-mindedly tasted a mango dessert and was perfectly fine. "Aren't you allergic to mangoes?" I asked. She paused for a moment, then quickly laughed and said, "Oh, that old Chinese doctor cured my allergy. He's really amazing." I nodded, but in my heart, I marked the first question mark. Is this really my wife? A month passed quickly, and Mary blended perfectly into our lives. She knew the location of every item in the house, remembered our shared memories, and could even accurately name friends we hadn't contacted in years. But those subtle feelings of discord kept growing. For example, the real Mary liked to listen to classical music, especially Debussy, while designing jewelry. But she would always unconsciously hum along to pop songs. Mary always habitually used her left hand to hold chopsticks, even though she knew it was wrong. She just couldn't change. But she was a standard right-handed user. The most obvious difference appeared that night when I accidentally caught her smoking in the bedroom. The real Mary hated the smell of smoke. Even when I came home from social events with a faint scent of cigarettes, she would frown. "When did you start smoking?" I stood at the doorway, my voice soft. She was clearly startled, hastily snuffing out the cigarette. This is a herbal cigarette for treating insomnia, prescribed by an old Chinese doctor." I nodded, not pressing further, but the doubts in my heart only grew deeper. The next day, I went to find Frank. "Help me check if, in the past 3 years, plastic surgery technology has advanced enough to achieve this level." Frank's eyes widened. "You mean, she's not Mary?" "I'm not sure, but there are always some things that don't add up." 2 days later, Frank brought news. High-end plastic surgery can make faces look similar, but it can't replicate the exact placement of scars or moles. And there's a limit to how well someone can imitate a voice. What if it was a twin? Frank shook his head. "Mary is an only child. We all know that." I decided not to show my feelings for now and to keep observing. A week later, Mary's mother came to my house with astonishing news. "George, Mary is going to have a baby," my mother-in-law told me excitedly. I stood there stunned. Before we got married, Mary had been diagnosed with uterine hypoplasia. The doctor had made it clear she could never get pregnant. This was our shared secret. Not even my mother-in-law knew. How do you know that?" I managed to ask. "Mary told me this morning. She said she already had a checkup. It's been 2 months. My mother-in-law happily grabbed my hand. "It's a blessing from above. Mary survived death, and now she can bring us new life." My heart sank to the bottom. This absolutely could not be Mary. That night, I dug out the hospital's diagnosis certificate in my study, which clearly stated the condition of Mary's uterus. But when I wanted to talk to Mary about it, I found her in the bedroom, excitedly discussing the decoration of the nursery with my mother-in-law. "Mary, could you come here for a moment?" I called her calmly. She followed me into the study, still wearing a blissful smile on her face. "Did you forget about this?" I handed her the diagnosis certificate. She took it and glanced at it, her face instantly turning pale. "George, I can explain." "Explain what?" "Explain that you're not Mary at all." Mother-in-law heard the commotion and walked in. "What's going on with you two?" "Mom, take a look at this." I handed her the proof. My mother-in-law read it, then looked at Mary in astonishment. "What's going on?" "Mary, you can't have children." "Of course she can," I sneered. Because she's not Mary at all. My mother-in-law's face changed dramatically. What nonsense are you talking about? I can explain. She hurriedly grabbed my mother-in-law's hand. That old Chinese doctor not only saved my life, but also cured my uterine problem. It's a miracle, truly. My mother-in-law looked at me, then at her, hesitating. George, you're being too paranoid. My mother-in-law finally took her daughter's side. Mary has come back with great difficulty. You should cherish her, not doubt her. Yes, George, I know this is hard to accept, but miracles do happen. Tears welled up in her eyes. Haven't we always wanted a child? Now we can finally have our own baby. I looked at her face, identical to Mary's, yet I became more certain in my heart. This woman was not my wife. All right, I believe you. I smiled, deciding to go along with their story for now. Let's wait together for this miracle to happen. That night, I secretly contacted a private detective. My mother-in-law gladly accepted her daughter's explanation, even suggesting she move in with us to take care of Mary during her pregnancy. Outwardly, I agreed, but inside I grew even more wary. This was no coincidence. There had to be some kind of plot. Mom, haven't you always lived in Haicheng? Won't it be hard to get used to living here? I probed cautiously. For my grandson, I'm willing to endure any inconvenience, my mother-in-law said firmly. I noticed a fleeting unnatural expression on Mary's face. Could the truth be connected to my mother-in-law? On the third day after my mother-in-law moved in, I discovered more suspicious details. For example, the real Mary never drank coffee, but she and my mother-in-law often enjoyed it together. Also, Mary's favorite movie was Roman Holiday, but she claimed to prefer Titanic. The strangest thing is, Mary used to despise her cousin Tom when she was alive, but now he visits frequently and chats and laughs with Mary as if they're old friends. I told Frank about these discoveries. Buddy, things are getting more and more suspicious, Frank frowned. Are you sure you want to keep going like this? Why not just expose her directly? It's not the right time yet. I want to find out what they're really after. The private detective's investigation also made progress. The so-called old Chinese doctor who had saved Mary did not exist at all, and Mary's whereabouts over the past 3 years were completely untraceable. More importantly, the private detective uncovered a shocking fact during the investigation. Mary's cousin Tom was deeply in debt from gambling, and the painting Eternity under my name, worth over $6 million, was his only hope for quick cash. They're after your painting, the private detective asserted, and this fake Mary is likely a professional identity fraudster, hard to win your trust. I took a deep breath and decided to take the initiative. That afternoon, I pretended to go out, but secretly returned home and hid in the study. Sure enough, Mary and her cousin Tom were whispering to each other in the living room. It's taking too long, Tom said irritably. How much longer until he sells the painting? Don't worry, she soothed him. I'm already pregnant, and now he completely believes I'm Mary. In a little while, I'll say I want to move to a better neighborhood for the sake of the baby, and then we'll naturally need to sell the painting to raise money. You're really pregnant? That wasn't part of the plan. It was an accident, but it works to our advantage. George wants a child so badly. Does Annie know the truth? She only knows we're trying to scam money, not the specific plan. But she hates George, thinks he caused her daughter's death, so she's more than happy to help. I clenched my fists. So my mother-in-law had always believed that Mary's accident was somehow my fault. In fact, we did argue over something trivial that day, and Mary stormed out in anger. I didn't try to stop her. But I never imagined it would be the last time I'd see her. You don't actually have feelings for George, do you? Tom suddenly asked. She was silent for a moment. It's just part of the job. Besides, I owe you, and I won't go back on my word. Good then. Don't forget how we're splitting the money once we get it. Their conversation confirmed my suspicions. This was all an elaborate scheme, with my eternity as the target. In the days that followed, I pretended everything was normal while secretly making preparations. I contacted the police, arranged for evidence-gathering equipment, and found the last piece Mary had left before she died, a silver necklace that had never been made public, engraved with an anniversary date only the two of us knew. 2 weeks later, my art exhibition was held as scheduled. As planned, Mary brought up the idea of moving, hinting that I could sell Eternity. I pretended to agree and said I would auction the painting on the last day of the exhibition. This is a surprise I prepared for you, I said on the eve of the exhibition, taking out a delicate box. To celebrate the new life we're about to begin. She opened the box in surprise, and inside was the silver necklace. "It's beautiful, thank you." She smiled as she prepared to put it on. "Wait," I stopped her. "Aren't you going to look at the engraving on the back?" She turned the necklace over, and her face suddenly went pale. "What's wrong? Don't you like it?" I asked, feigning ignorance. "No, I really like it. It's just, I'm a bit moved." She forced a smile, but didn't know how to explain that she couldn't recognize the significance of that date. "See you tomorrow. Get some good rest, and don't forget to wear this necklace." I kissed her forehead and whispered in her ear, "After all, this is your final design." Her body visibly stiffened for a moment, but she kept smiling. "Of course, I cherish it very much. Tomorrow, the truth will come to light." On the day of the exhibition, the place was packed with people. My painting, Eternity, was displayed in the most prominent spot, right next to the last batch of jewelry designs Mary had created before her death. Mary held my arm, flawlessly playing the role of my wife as always. She had even gone out of her way to wear Mary's favorite white dress and the silver necklace I had given her last night. My mother-in-law and Tom were there too. The three of them exchanged glances from time to time, clearly waiting for the perfect moment. Frank appeared as planned, pretending to be extremely interested in Eternity and asking me about the auction details. "The auction will begin promptly at 4 in the afternoon," I replied with a smile. "This painting means a great deal to me, and I hope it finds someone who truly appreciates it." Mary immediately chimed in, "Yes, although it's hard to part with it, this is a necessary decision for our future." I noticed she glanced at Tom, who gave a barely perceptible nod. At 3:30 in the afternoon, the projector in the center of the exhibition hall lit up. This was the special segment I had arranged. "Ladies and gentlemen, I stood in front of Eternity. Before the auction begins, I'd like to share a little story about this painting." Mary's photo appeared on the projection screen, a group picture from her last birthday party before she passed away. 3 years ago, my wife Mary died in an accident. I created this painting, Eternity, in her memory. The woman in the painting has her back to the viewer, forever gazing into the distance, symbolizing a longing I can never reach. A soft sigh rippled through the crowd. Mary stood beside me, matching my words with a sorrowful expression. However, a month ago, a miracle happened. I turned to look at Mary. My wife came back. The whole room erupted in astonishment, and many people curiously sized up, "Mary. This is my wife, Mary." I took her hand and stepped forward. Back from the dead, it's truly the greatest blessing heaven could have given me. She smiled and nodded to everyone, while my mother-in-law and Tom stood by with smug expressions. However, my tone suddenly shifted. Amidst my joy, a question arose. Is she really Mary? The entire room fell silent. Mary's hand trembled slightly in my palm. So, I did some investigating. The projector switched to a set of comparison photos. On the left was the real Mary. On the right was a photo of her. They look exactly the same, don't they? But I clicked the remote, and the photo was enlarged, the details highlighted. The position of the piercing on the left ear was slightly different, the arch of the eyebrows subtly varied, and the fine lines at the corners of the eyes ran in different directions. These are details that even professional plastic surgery cannot fully replicate. Mary tried to pull her hand away, but I held on tightly. My mother-in-law and Tom also began to grow anxious, glancing toward the exit. More importantly, the real Mary has a feature that cannot be copied. I turned to Mary. "The necklace I gave you last night has a date engraved on the back. Can you tell everyone what that date is?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. "That was the due date of our first child, the one we lost." I spoke softly, my voice trembling with emotion. "Mary designed this necklace to commemorate the baby we never got to meet. The date was our secret, only Mary and I knew." The room fell utterly silent. Mary turned deathly pale, my mother-in-law's eyes widened, and Tom had already started edging toward the door. "What surprised me even more," I continued, "was that the real Mary could never get pregnant due to an underdeveloped uterus. Yet this, Mary claims she's already 2 months along." I let go of her hand and took a step back. "So, who are you really?" A flicker of despair flashed in Mary's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. "I am Mary, it's just that old Chinese doctor." "The non-existent old Chinese doctor, right?" I sneered. "Just like the non-existent amnesia, the non-existent miraculous recovery." I turned toward the projection screen. "Let's see the truth." The screen played the secretly recorded video of her conversation with Tom, their discussion on how to swindle eternity, clearly audible. This isn't. She tried to explain, but my mother-in-law had already rushed forward. Who are you really? My mother-in-law screamed. You're not my daughter? Auntie, stop pretending, I said calmly. You know she's not Mary. You just wanted to get back at me, didn't you? My mother-in-law's face turned pale. I didn't know she was going to impersonate Mary. Tom just said he needed help to scam some money. Police. Don't move. Several plainclothes officers emerged from the crowd, blocking Tom as he tried to escape. Amid the chaos, Mary took the opportunity to shove me aside and run toward the exit. I chased after her and caught up in the parking lot. Tell me, who are you really? She finally stopped, turned to face me, tears welling in her eyes. My name is Luna. I'm an actress. Tom found me and said if I helped trick you out of a painting, he'd give me $1 million. I needed the money for my sister's medical treatment. Why did they choose me? Why Mary? She shook her head. I don't know. They gave me a lot of information, photos, videos, even your chat logs. I was just following the script. The police arrived and took her away. I stood where I was, gazing at the distant sky, my heart a tumult of emotions. Back in the exhibition hall, the crowd had already dispersed, leaving only Frank and a few police officers. It's all been cleared up, Frank walked over. Tom owed money to loan sharks and was desperate. Your mother-in-law always resented you for not saving Mary, so she helped them plan the whole thing. I walked up to eternity, gently caressing the back of the woman in the painting. Mary, I can finally give you an answer. The police left with the evidence. Frank patted me on the shoulder. What do you plan to do next? I took a deep breath. Prepare for the final painting. What will it be called? The Pursuit, I said softly. This time, I'll paint her face, not just her back. After the case was solved, my life seemed to return to where it was 3 years ago. Eternity was temporarily held by the court as crucial evidence. Tom and Luna were arrested for fraud, and my mother-in-law was investigated as an accomplice. The prosecution wants you to testify in court, the officer called to inform me. The trial is scheduled for early next month. I agreed, though I was utterly exhausted inside. After exposing the deception, I thought I would feel the thrill of revenge, but what I felt instead was a profound emptiness. Those days spent with Mary that month had allowed me to feel a trace of warmth in life again, even if that warmth was born of lies. Frank often came to see me, worried I might fall into despair once more. I told him not to worry, that I was working on a new piece, The Pursuit. Are you really going to paint Mary's face from the front? Frank asked curiously. For the past 3 years, you've always refused to do that. It's time, I replied. We can't live in the past forever. I moved out of the apartment I had shared with Mary and returned to the old house in the suburbs, the place where the real Mary and I had first made our home. The dust-laden memories in the house brought me both pain and comfort. Mary's studio remained just as she had left it, design sketches scattered across the table, unfinished jewelry drafts pinned to the drawing board. One afternoon, while sorting through Mary's belongings, I discovered an encrypted external hard drive. After several attempts, I finally unlocked it using our wedding anniversary as the password. Inside were backups of Mary's design works, along with some personal photos and videos. One folder in particular caught my attention. Inside a folder named Plan was a series of jewelry design sketches, labeled George's Birthday Special Project. It was then I remembered that, in the months before Mary passed away, she often spoke mysteriously about giving me an unparalleled birthday surprise. Leafing through these design drafts, I couldn't help but be moved to tears. Mary had planned to design a jewelry collection inspired by my paintings over the years, with each piece corresponding to a representative work from my artistic career. The last page was a sketch of a ring, with a dark red stone set in the center, its edges adorned with tiny diamonds, closely resembling the sunrise in my early work, Dawn. This is blood amber? I examined the notes carefully, confirming the name of this rare gemstone. Mary's designs had always been bold, but blood amber is extremely rare in the Chinese market, almost impossible to acquire. How did she obtain such a material? As I continued searching, I found a series of email correspondence screenshots. Mary had actually contacted a gemstone dealer in Myanmar, commissioning the blood amber specifically for this ring. The last email showed that the gem had already been shipped, but the date was exactly 1 week before Mary's death. I immediately called Frank. Help me check if there was a package sent from Myanmar 3 years ago, addressed to Mary. 2 days later, Frank brought news. The package did exist, but since no one signed for it, it was returned. However, according to the shipping records, it was resent a month ago, this time addressed to you. What? I was completely confused. I haven't received any package. Check your old apartment? Frank suggested. Back at my old apartment, the manager told me there was indeed a package, but it had been signed for by Mary. She said it was a surprise for you, so she didn't notify you, the manager explained. This meant Luna had taken the blood amber. I rushed to the detention center and requested to see Luna. Separated by glass, she looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but still wore that face so similar to Mary's. What are you doing here? She asked coldly. A month ago, you signed for a package from Myanmar. There was a blood amber inside. I want to know where it is. She looked surprised. How did you know? Tom asked me to sign for it. He said it was some precious gem. He took it. My heart sank. Tom was deep in gambling debt. A precious blood amber would be a windfall for him. He had probably sold it long ago. That blood amber is very important to me, I said softly. It was the last gift my wife left me. Luna was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, maybe it's not that bad. Tom said the stone has flaws, its value is greatly reduced, and he hasn't found a suitable buyer yet. Hope was rekindled. If Tom hadn't sold the blood amber yet, maybe there was still a chance to get it back. Do you know where he might hide it? Luna hesitated for a moment. He has a safe deposit box in a self-storage facility on the east side of the city. After getting the address, I immediately contacted the officer in charge of the case and explained the situation. Since Tom was involved in a large sum of money, the police quickly approved the search request. Mr. George, we've found the safe deposit box, the officer said over the phone. Inside, we did find the blood amber you described, as well as some other evidence. A few hours later, I retrieved the blood amber at the police station. It was even more beautiful than I had imagined. Within the dark red core, wisps of mist seemed to swirl, shifting strangely under the light. This was the birthday gift Mary had so carefully chosen for me, waiting for 3 years. Back home, I carefully placed the blood amber beside the canvas of the pursuit. The painting was already more than half finished, Mary's face emerging from the blur into clarity, yet it still felt like something was missing. Watching the blood amber glimmer faintly under the light, I suddenly understood how I should complete the painting. The creation of the pursuit entered its final stage. I decided to break convention and incorporate the blood amber into the artwork. This would not only be a portrait, but a hybrid piece that fused painting with the art of jewelry. Are you sure you want to do this? Frank frowned. That blood amber is priceless. That's exactly why, I said firmly. Mary chose it for me. She wanted to inspire an unparalleled masterpiece. I will fulfill her wish. For 2 whole weeks, I worked day and night, neglecting sleep and food. I cut the blood amber into thin slices and inlaid them at the spot of Mary's eyes on the canvas, making her gaze truly come alive. I used a special technique to blend the surrounding paint, creating a harmonious transition with the gemstone. From certain angles, the entire painting seemed to be imbued with life, and Mary's expression would shift depending on where the viewer stood. On the day I finished the piece, Frank brought news. Luna had been sentenced to 3 years in prison, but due to her good attitude in confessing, she might serve only 1.5 years. Tom, involved in multiple fraud cases, was sentenced to 7 years. My mother-in-law, as an accomplice, received a suspended sentence. The case is finally over, Frank said. Are you planning to exhibit your painting? Yes. Next month there will be a solo exhibition at the National Art Museum, and The Pursuit will be the grand finale. The curator couldn't stop praising this piece, believing it represents the innovative direction of contemporary art and marks the pinnacle of my career. Indeed, this painting, which incorporates Mary's jewelry design concepts, is in some sense a creation we made together. On the eve of the exhibition, I checked the arrangement in the gallery alone one last time, making sure every piece was perfectly lit and positioned. When I reached The Pursuit, I couldn't help but stop and gaze at it. Mary's face was vividly lifelike, her eyes inlaid with blood amber gleaming under the spotlight, as if she were smiling at me. For the first time in 3 years, I faced her directly, no longer painting only her back. Mr. George, a stranger's voice called from behind, Sorry to disturb you, but the gallery has been cleared. He turned around to see a young woman dressed in the museum's staff uniform. And you are? I'm the new curator, responsible for security in your exhibition area, she explained with a smile. I really like your work, especially this piece, The Pursuit. Thank you. I nodded. I'll be leaving soon. She didn't leave, but continued to gaze at the painting. That red gem is beautiful, almost as if it's alive. It's blood amber, I explained, a very rare gemstone. I know, she said softly, top-grade blood amber from Myanmar, containing plant fossils, extremely rare. I looked at her in surprise. You know a lot about jewelry? She smiled. I study jewelry design. I'm just working part-time here. For some reason, Mary suddenly came to mind. She, too, had an almost obsessive passion for and expertise in gemstones. If you don't mind me asking, who is the woman in this painting? She asked. My wife, I replied. She passed away 3 years ago. She was a jewelry designer. I'm very sorry, she said sincerely, then gestured toward the blood amber. This gem must mean a great deal to you. It was the last birthday gift she chose for me before she died, but I only found it recently. She nodded thoughtfully. Setting it into her portrait is the best way to remember her. For some reason, talking with this unfamiliar woman brought me a strange sense of calm. Perhaps it was her love for jewelry that reminded me of Mary. Sorry, I have to continue my rounds. She glanced at her watch. See you tomorrow, Mr. George. See you tomorrow, I replied, watching her leave. On the way home, I felt an unusual peace. The completion of The Pursuit seemed to mark the end of my search for Mary as well. Not forgetting, but remembering her forever in another way. The next day, the exhibition's opening ceremony attracted numerous figures from the art world and the media. The Pursuit undoubtedly became the center of attention, with people marveling at this innovative form of artistic expression. Amid the crowd, I noticed that curator standing aside, watching as well. Sunlight streamed through the skylight of the gallery, falling upon her, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw Mary's shadow. No, I shook my head, warning myself not to be deceived by mere resemblance. There would never be another Mary in this world, just as there would never be another unique blood amber. After the exhibition, The Pursuit was purchased by an anonymous collector for an astronomical price. I donated all the proceeds to a foundation supporting students in jewelry design, establishing a scholarship in Mary's name. Life slowly moved forward, and I began to accept new commissions and create new works. Occasionally, I would think of that curator with a unique insight into jewelry, wondering if she was still working at the art museum. Until one day, I received an email from HL. There were no words, only an image. A sketch of a ring design, the style strikingly similar to Mary's unfinished series. My heart raced as I replied immediately. Who is this? The response came quickly. Yesterday, you brushed past me by the cafe on the street corner, but you didn't recognize me. If you want to know more, wait for me at the museum entrance at noon tomorrow. Is it that librarian? How could she have a design so reminiscent of Mary's style? Filled with anxiety and anticipation, I decided to accept the invitation and find out for myself. The next day at noon, I arrived at the art museum half an hour early. The sun was shining, and small groups of visitors were coming and going from the exhibition hall. But there was no sign of the mysterious person. Just as I began to suspect this might be some kind of prank, a faint trace of perfume drifted by, a scent unfamiliar to me, yet it inexplicably reminded me of Mary. Mr. George, thank you for coming. The voice behind me made me turn around. It was the curator. Today, she wasn't wearing her uniform, but a simple white dress, completely different from Mary's style when she was alive. Did you send the email? I asked directly. She nodded. There are some things I want to tell you, but not here. Will you come with me? We walked through the small park beside the art museum and arrived at a secluded cafe. The whole time, I kept observing her. Her mannerisms, the way she walked, none of it resembled Mary. Yet her sensitivity to detail and her focused attention gave me a strange sense of familiarity. Who are you, really? The moment we sat down, I couldn't wait to ask. My name is Nicole. She looked me straight in the eye. I'm Mary's student. This answer caught me off guard. Mary had indeed taught jewelry design part-time at the Design Academy before she passed away, but she had never mentioned having any particularly close students. I took her advanced design class the year before she passed, Nicole explained, Her guidance benefited me for a lifetime. That still doesn't explain why your designs resemble her style so much, I said, half convinced. Nicole took a folder out of her bag. These are all notes from Ms. Nicole's class and her feedback on my work. You can look at the handwriting and confirm that it's really hers. I carefully examined the materials. It was indeed Mary's handwriting. There were even traces of the pale purple ink she habitually used. Before Ms. Nicole passed away, she was guiding me on my graduation project, Nicole continued. The theme was interwoven light and shadow, blending Eastern and Western aesthetic elements. She gave me a lot of valuable advice and even showed me a sketch from a private project she was working on at the time. George's special birthday project? I blurted out. Nicole's eyes widened in surprise. You know about it? I only found out recently. I briefly explained the origin of the blood amber. I knew that blood amber would eventually find its way back to you, Nicole said with a smile. Nicole always said it was a destined gift. Is that why you contacted me? Because you saw the blood amber? Nicole was silent for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. Not entirely. After Nicole passed away, I've been trying to carry on the design philosophy she taught me. Some time ago, I happened to see the news about your eternity being stolen, and then I saw someone impersonating Nicole. I thought I should tell you a few things. She took a letter out of her bag. This is the last letter Nicole gave me after class before she passed away. She said if her surprise plan went smoothly, I should show you this letter. If anything went wrong and she was gone, I should still make sure you see it. I took the envelope. It was indeed Mary's handwriting, and it read, "To my dearest husband." The envelope had already been opened. I didn't know what was in the letter at the time. I just kept it as Nicole instructed, Nicole explained. It wasn't until I saw the news that I opened it. I hope you won't blame me. I carefully took out the letter paper and unfolded it to read. Dear George, if you are reading this letter, perhaps my surprise plan has gone awry. Don't worry, it's just that the plan has changed, and the form of the gift may be different now. The blood amber I picked for you is said to be known as the Eye of Rebirth. Legend has it that looking at the world through it reveals truths that are often overlooked. I hope it can become a turning point in your artistic career, leading you to see new possibilities. All these years, your paintings have always depicted backs, as if you're afraid to face something head-on. I hope this gemstone will give you the courage to paint the front, to capture true emotions. No matter what happens, please remember, love does not disappear, it merely changes form, like this blood amber, which, after millions of years, transforms from resin into a gem, yet still shines. Forever loving you, Mary. The handwriting became a bit messy at the end, as if written in a hurry. I stroked the paper, as if I could feel Mary's emotions at that moment. Thank you, I said, my voice choked with emotion. This means a lot to me. You're welcome. I'm just fulfilling Ms. Nicole's request, Nicole said with a smile. Actually, there's one more thing I'd like to ask your help with. What is it? I'd like to apply for the Mary Scholarship you established, she said, taking a design portfolio out of her bag. This is my graduation project, combining Ms. Nicole's ideas with my own innovations. As I flipped through the portfolio, I was surprised to find that while these designs bore traces of Mary's influence, they also possessed a unique style and innovative touches. In particular, a series called Metamorphosis cleverly combined jewelry with transformable elements, allowing the pieces to change form according to the wearer's mood and occasion. This is outstanding, I praised sincerely. Mary would be proud of you. A hint of joy flashed in Nicole's eyes. Really? I've always worried I couldn't live up to her expectations. You've already moved beyond the learning stage and developed your own style. That's exactly what she hoped to see. As we talked, sunlight streamed through the window and fell on Nicole. In that moment, I seemed to understand something. When Mary spoke of love changing its form, perhaps she wasn't just referring to the blood amber, but also to her passion for art and its legacy. Luna tried to impersonate Mary by mimicking her appearance, but she could never truly replicate who she was. Nicole, on the other hand, looked nothing like Mary, yet she inherited a part of her artistic vision and spirit. Perhaps this is the true gift Mary left me, not the blood amber, but a new possibility, a path out of the past. Nicole's graduation exhibition was held in a small gallery. Though the space was modest, it was exquisitely arranged. Her works were divided into 3 series, representing the past, the present, and the future, forming a complete narrative. This is a brilliant idea, I sincerely praised. From tradition to contemporary and then to the future, it showcases the evolution and possibilities of jewelry design. Nicole smiled and nodded. This was inspired by teacher Nicole. She always says that good design should look back at history, be grounded in the present, and look forward to the future. As I walked through the exhibition hall, I noticed a special display case in the corner, containing only one piece, a seemingly simple ring with a small red gemstone set in the center. This is. I leaned in to read the label, which said, "In memory, dedicated to Teacher Mary." Yes, I made it from a small piece of blood amber I bought with my own savings, Nicole explained. It can't compare to the quality of yours, but it's also from Myanmar. I examined the design of the ring closely. Clean, powerful lines with fine silver threads encircling the blood amber, as if protecting the central gem, yet also seeming to radiate light outward. This is very similar to Mary's final design style, I said softly, but it also has your own unique touch. I wanted to create a piece that could both commemorate teacher Nicole and showcase my own style, Nicole explained. The blood amber represents her influence, while the outer design is the direction of my own development. The exhibition attracted quite a few industry insiders, including some well-known figures from the jewelry design world. After viewing the exhibition, an older female designer approached Nicole and offered her an internship opportunity. I stood by, genuinely happy for Nicole. In the evening, as the exhibition was drawing to a close, Frank arrived as well. Seeing me with Nicole, he gave me a knowing smile. "New friend?" he asked me quietly. "Mary's student," I explained simply. "Very talented." Frank nodded without asking further questions. After touring the exhibition, he gave high praise to Nicole's work. It blends traditional and modern elements, demonstrating both technical skill and artistic expression, quite rare. Nicole thanked him politely. This wouldn't have been possible without the guidance of teacher Nicole and teacher George. After the exhibition, the three of us went to a nearby restaurant for dinner. During the meal, Frank talked about recent trends in the art market, while Nicole shared her insights on contemporary jewelry design. The conversation was light and pleasant, and I realized it had been a long time since I had relaxed and chatted with others like this. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank received an urgent call and left early. Only Nicole and I remained in the restaurant, and the atmosphere suddenly became a bit quiet. "Mr. George," Nicole hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I've always had a question I wanted to ask you." "What is it?" "After you finished The Pursuit, what are you planning to create next?" The question caught me off guard. To be honest, ever since The Pursuit, I haven't had any new inspiration. That painting seemed to have drained all my emotions and creativity. "I haven't decided yet," I answered honestly. "It might take some time to find a new direction." Nicole nodded thoughtfully. Nicole once said that the hardest thing for an artist isn't creating a stunning masterpiece, but finding a way forward after reaching the peak. She really did say that, I recalled with a smile. Mary always saw further than I did. "Maybe," Nicole said softly, "you could try a new direction that combines your work with jewelry design? Like in The Pursuit, but taking it even further." I recalled what Mary mentioned in her letter about seeing new possibilities, and suddenly I was inspired. "You mean creating a series of works that combine painting and jewelry?" "Exactly," Nicole said excitedly. "Your paintings create emotion in two-dimensional space, while jewelry gives it tangible form in the three-dimensional world. The combination of the two would have an astonishing effect." The more we talked, the more engaged we became, even sketching a few concept designs on the restaurant's napkins. Nicole's ideas were fresh and bold, perfectly aligning with my artistic vision, yet bringing a new perspective. As we left the restaurant, Nicole suddenly said, "I have to confess something." I looked at her in confusion. "I reached out to you not only to deliver Nicole's letter, but also for a personal reason. I hope to learn from you," she said candidly. "I want to become a designer like Nicole, someone who not only creates beautiful works but also perfectly blends art with emotion." Her sincerity moved me. "You're already on that path, and you're doing very well." "Then, may I consult you often?" she asked a little nervously. Of course, I'd be delighted. On the way home, a series of new works already began to take shape in my mind. A cross-disciplinary art that fuses painting and jewelry, both as a tribute to Mary and as a new starting point in my artistic career. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, Mary stood in a halo of blood-red light, smiling at me and saying, "See, I knew you would find a new direction." When I woke up, I got out of bed immediately and began sketching for the new series. I decided to name it Rebirth, not only representing the ancient life forever preserved in blood amber, but also symbolizing the rebirth of my artistic career, as well as the inheritance and development of Mary's artistic vision. A week later, I submitted a new series proposal to the gallery and received an enthusiastic response. The curator even suggested holding a special exhibition themed Between Dimensions, a dialogue between painting and jewelry. For this project, I invited Nicole to join the team as a jewelry design consultant. She had just graduated from design school and was both excited and nervous about the opportunity. "Am I really up to the task?" she asked me in the studio. "You understand Mary's design philosophy better than anyone," I assured her. "That's exactly what I need." In the days that followed, we worked at a feverish pace. We created during the day and discussed at night, sometimes even working through until dawn. Nicole's ideas flowed endlessly, and I transformed those thoughts into concrete artistic expressions. In the process, I rediscovered the pure joy of creation that I hadn't felt in a long time. One late night, when we finally finished the design for our first piece, Nicole clapped her hands excitedly. "This is amazing. Teacher Nicole will definitely love it." At the mention of Mary, she suddenly realized her slip and looked at me nervously. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "It's all right," I said with a smile. "I think Mary really would like it." She always hoped I could step out of my comfort zone and try new ways of expressing myself. Nicole let out a sigh of relief, then hesitantly asked, "Professor George, may I ask you a personal question?" "What is it?" "When you faced the woman impersonating Professor Nicole, how did you see through her? I mean, from the news reports, she seemed like an exact copy of Professor Nicole." I pondered for a moment. Superficial resemblance is easy to achieve, but a true personality cannot be duplicated. Mary's perception of art, her attitude toward life, the way she handled details, these were all unique. Just like a work of art, Nicole mused, no matter how perfect a replica is, it can never capture the soul of the original. Exactly. We worked through the night again, and finally established the overall framework for the Rebirth series. 7 pieces, each blending elements of painting and jewelry, together telling a story of loss and recovery, death and rebirth. As our collaboration deepened, my relationship with Nicole gradually shifted from teacher and student to partners, both mentor and friend. Sometimes, when the light traced the gentle contours of her focused profile, I would unconsciously think of Mary. But soon, I realized that this association wasn't due to any physical resemblance, but rather that same dedication and passion for art. "George, you look much more spirited lately," Frank remarked at a gathering. "It's been a while since I've seen you so full of life." "Yeah, the new project has helped me rediscover the joy of creating." "Nicole's a good girl," Frank said meaningfully. "Talented, and she really understands you." I understood his implication, but just smiled without responding. There was indeed a special understanding between Nicole and me, but it was more rooted in our shared passion for art than anything else. At least for now. The creation of the Rebirth series took 3 months, longer than expected, but the results were stunning. Each piece was a perfect fusion of painting and jewelry art, offering both the pleasure of viewing as a flat image and the discovery of 3-dimensional effects brought by the jewelry elements from different angles. A week before the exhibition opened, I received an unexpected visitor, Luna. She had served her sentence and was released early. She looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but her eyes were clearer. "I came to apologize to you in person." She stood at the studio door, her voice low, "for everything I have done." I didn't respond immediately, but simply invited her in to sit down. "I know that an apology can't make up for the loss," she continued, "but I want you to know that I truly regret it." "How is your sister's illness?" I asked. She looked up in surprise. You know. I guessed. "You said you needed money for a reason, and I think that must have been true." "Yes," she nodded. "My sister's surgery was a success, and now she's fully recovered. For the past 3 years, I've been thinking about how to make up for my mistakes, even though I may never be able to." I was silent for a moment, then said, "You know, in a way, your appearance actually helped me." "What do you mean?" "It forced me to confront the past, to re-examine my memories with Mary, and ultimately to find a way forward." I pointed to the sketches of the Rebirth series on the wall and briefly explained this new project. Luna listened quietly, a look of genuine respect in her eyes. "I'm glad you were able to find a new beginning from that nightmare," she said at last. "I hope I can find my own path to rebirth as well." As she left, she handed me a small package. "These are some simple pieces of jewelry I made in prison. The craftsmanship is rough, but each one represents my remorse and blessings. I hope you can accept them." Opening the package, I found several small trinkets handmade from fine wire and colorful glass beads. Though simple, it was clear the creator had poured their heart into them. Nicole happened to come into the studio at that moment. Seeing the trinkets, she asked curiously, "What are these?" I told her about Luna's visit. "You forgave her?" Nicole was a bit surprised. "Not exactly forgiveness," I said thoughtfully. "It's more like understanding. Everyone has their own hardships and choices. What's important is how we learn and grow from our mistakes." Nicole nodded pensively, picking up a piece of jewelry to examine it closely. "The craftsmanship is rough, but the concept is ingenious. This person seems to have a talent for design." "Perhaps," I said. "Everyone has the possibility of being reborn." On the day of the exhibition opening, numerous figures from the art and jewelry worlds gathered together. The Rebirth series received unprecedented acclaim. Critics called it a model of cross-disciplinary art, and the gallery owner was overjoyed, announcing plans for a nationwide tour. In the crowd, I saw Luna. She was dressed simply, standing quietly in a corner, admiring the exhibits. Our eyes met in the air. She nodded slightly, then walked away. "Who was that?" Nicole asked, standing beside me. "Someone searching for rebirth," I replied. Nicole seemed to understand and asked no more. We stood side by side before the pursuit, watching the blood amber refract a strange light under the lamps, like the silent burning of life's flame. "Thank you," I whispered to Nicole. "Without you, this series might never have come into being." "It was your philosophy that guided us, teacher Nicole," she replied modestly. "I was just fortunate enough to be the messenger." In that moment, I suddenly understood the true meaning of what Mary had written in her letter. Love has changed its form. Love exists not only in memory and longing, but also in inheritance and innovation, shining brightly in every spark of artistic creation. And I, at last, had learned how to begin anew after loss, to embrace rebirth while still searching. The success of the exhibition exceeded everyone's expectations. In just 1 month, the Rebirth series was reported on by major media outlets and even attracted the attention of the international art world. A renowned auction house extended an olive branch to me, hoping to include several pieces in their annual highlight auction. "This is an unprecedented opportunity," Frank said excitedly. "If the deal goes through, you'll become a top player in the contemporary art market." I wasn't particularly concerned with commercial success, but I did feel the joy of having my work widely recognized. More importantly, this series opened up a new artistic path for me, freeing me from the creative shackles of the past 3 years. Nicole benefited as well. As the project's jewelry design consultant, she received high praise from the industry. Several well-known jewelry brands reached out to her, hoping she would join their design teams. "Which offer are you planning to accept?" One night, as we were tidying up the studio together, I asked her. "To be honest, I'm still hesitating." Nicole paused her work. "These are all great opportunities, but what? But I want to keep working with you." She looked straight into my eyes. "Rebirth is just the beginning, isn't it?" Her candor surprised me a little. Indeed, the success of this series had opened up many new creative possibilities for us, but I wasn't sure if I should continue such a close working relationship. "You should consider your own career development," I said tactfully. "These opportunities are very rare for young designers." Nicole seemed to sense my hesitation and nodded gently. "I understand." In the days that followed, we were both busy and rarely had the chance to talk alone. A week later, Nicole told me she had decided to accept an invitation from a French jewelry brand and would be going to Paris to work for 2 years. "Congratulations," I said sincerely. "It's a very good choice." "Thank you," she replied with a smile, though a fleeting, elusive emotion flashed in her eyes. "I think this is the best arrangement for both of us." Before Nicole left, we held a small farewell party. Frank, the curator, and a few mutual friends came. The atmosphere was warm, tinged with a hint of sadness. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank found an opportunity to pull me aside. Are you really going to just let her go like this? What do you mean? I pretended not to understand. Don't play dumb, man, Frank said bluntly. You have feelings for her. That's obvious. That's just professional rapport, I argued. Is that so? Frank looked at me meaningfully. Then why have you been so distracted ever since she decided to go to France? I was at a loss for words. In fact, these past few days I had indeed felt an inexplicable sense of loss, but I kept telling myself it was only because I had lost an excellent partner. I know what you're worried about. Frank lowered his voice. You feel like you're letting Mary down, don't you? I remained silent. He had touched upon the deepest concern in my heart. Mary has been gone for 3 years now. Frank gently patted my shoulder. She would want you to be happy. After the party ended, I walked Nicole home. The night was tranquil as water, and the city lights flowed around us. Thank you for your help and guidance these past few months. Nicole stopped at the entrance of her apartment building. This experience has meant so much to me. I should be thanking you, I said sincerely. Without you, the Rebirth series would never have been completed. We fell into silence, as if both searching for the right words to say goodbye. My flight is the morning after tomorrow, Nicole finally said. I still have some things to take care of tomorrow. So, this is probably the last time we'll see each other. 2 years will pass quickly. I tried to make my voice sound light. Paris is a beautiful city. You'll like it there. She nodded, a complex emotion flickering in her eyes. Professor George, there's something I've always wanted to tell you, but never found the right opportunity. What is it? I chose to study jewelry design because I saw Nicole's works. She took a deep breath, or more precisely, because I saw the pieces Nicole designed for you. The way she perfectly fused love and art moved me deeply. I didn't know that, I said in surprise. I've always hoped that one day I could be like Nicole, creating art filled with emotion. Nicole continued, her words coming faster, as if afraid she might lose her courage. But now I realize that what I want even more is to create for a specific person, just like Nicole created for you. I understood her implication, and my heart suddenly began to race. Nicole, please don't respond, she gently interrupted me. I just wanted you to know before I leave. No matter how you feel right now, remember that starting over is not a betrayal of the past, but a way of cherishing life. With that, she rose up on her tiptoes and softly kissed my cheek, then quickly turned and walked into the apartment building, leaving me standing alone in the night, my mind in turmoil. After returning home, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, replaying Nicole's words and that gentle kiss over and over in my mind. Suddenly, I remembered a small box in the study, where Mary's last complete letter was kept, a letter I had found while sorting through her belongings. But at the time, overwhelmed by grief, I never had the courage to open. Now, I finally mustered the courage to walk into the study and retrieve that delicate little box from the depths of the drawer. Inside lay a pale pink letter, bearing Mary's familiar handwriting. Dearest George, by the time you read this letter, you may find yourself at a crossroads in life, hesitating between moving forward or staying where you are. My greatest wish is that you can move bravely through life, as freely as your brush glides across the canvas. Love is not a shackle, but a liberation. Memory is not a burden, but a source of strength. If one day you meet someone who can rekindle the light in your eyes, please don't hesitate because of your longing for me. True love is wishing happiness for the other, even if there is no longer a place for oneself in that happiness. Remember, the days we loved each other were complete, with no need for regrets. And now, it's time to paint a new picture, my beloved. Forever loving you. Mary. Tears blurred my vision. It was as if Mary had foreseen my current situation and had already given me her blessing. She was always like this, always able to see further and more clearly than I could. At that moment, I made up my mind. Early the next morning, I drove straight to Nicole's apartment. Professor George? Nicole opened the door in surprise, clearly not expecting me. I have something to say to you. I looked her straight in the eyes, not as your teacher, but as George. I handed her Mary's letter. Nicole read it carefully, her expression shifting from surprise to being moved, and finally, her eyes grew moist. She truly was an extraordinary woman, Nicole said softly, handing the letter back to me. Yes, she was, I nodded. That's exactly why I believe her words. Nicole, cancel your plans for Paris. Stay and continue our collaboration, will you? Nicole looked at me in shock. Are you serious? I've never been more serious, I said quietly. Rebirth is not just the name of an artwork, it's a possibility in life. Are you willing to explore that possibility with me? Her answer was a firm embrace, warm and real, like the first ray of sunlight after a long winter. In that moment, I felt as if Mary was somewhere, smiling down on us, blessing this new beginning. Life is like that blood amber, enduring countless ages of change and sedimentation, ultimately transforming into an eternal radiance. And I, at last, understood what true pursuit is, what true rebirth means. A year later, Nicole and I unveiled our second joint project, Interwoven, at the National Art Museum. This series was even bolder and more innovative than Rebirth, blending Eastern and Western aesthetics with various art forms. Critics hailed it as a significant breakthrough in contemporary art. At the opening ceremony, Nicole held my arm as we faced the media interviews and congratulations from the audience together. She wore a simple white dress, and around her neck was the Eye of Rebirth necklace we designed together. She completed the jewelry part based on my painting. Your collaboration seems even more in sync than your last project, a reporter asked with a suggestive smile. Nicole glanced at me, and we exchanged a smile. Yes, both in art and in life, we've found the perfect balance. This indirect answer drew a round of good-natured laughter from the reporters present. My relationship with Nicole was no longer a secret, but we always kept a low profile, letting the public's attention remain focused on our artistic creations. After the exhibition, we drove out to a small hill in the countryside. There stood an ancient oak tree, beneath which Mary's ashes were laid to rest. This was the place we chose, rather than a traditional cemetery, natural, peaceful, just like Mary herself. Mary, the exhibition was a great success today, I said softly to the stone beneath the tree. Nicole's designs were admired by everyone, just as you once predicted. Nicole crouched down and placed a bouquet of white daisies in front of the stone. Teacher Nicole, I've been working hard to become the kind of designer you hoped I would be. I hope you can be proud of me. A gentle breeze stirred, and the oak's leaves rustled softly, as if it were Mary's reply. On the way back, Nicole suddenly said, I've been thinking about something. What is it? If that woman who pretended to be Ms. Nicole hadn't appeared, you might never have found the blood amber, never created the pursuit, and we might never have met. Her words made me fall into deep thought. Indeed, it was the series of events triggered by that deception that ultimately led to everything now. It feels as if, in the unseen, some force has been orchestrating it all. Perhaps that's the irony of fate, I said softly. Sometimes, the worst beginnings can lead us to the best endings. When I returned home, I received an unexpected package. Upon opening it, I found a delicate little box containing a handmade ring. Though simple, the craftsmanship had improved greatly compared to the pieces I had seen before. There was a note attached. Mr. George, thank you for your kindness and understanding a year ago, which gave me the courage to start over. Now I have found a job at a small jewelry shop, and my life is gradually getting back on track. This ring represents my gratitude, and I wish you happiness and well-being on your new path. Luna, I handed the ring to Nicole. After examining it carefully, she remarked, her skills have improved a lot. She truly is talent. Some mistakes in life shouldn't become permanent scars, I sighed. Everyone deserves a second chance. That night, we sat in the studio, discussing ideas for the next series. Nicole suddenly proposed a bold idea. I was thinking, maybe we could try connecting the different stages of our work to create a complete narrative. From eternity to quest, then to rebirth, and intertwined, they're actually different phases in a person's life journey. You mean? A complete story about loss, searching, rebirth, and integration, she explained excitedly, ultimately asking what is the most precious treasure in life. Love. I finished her sentence, no matter what form it takes. Nicole nodded, her eyes sparkling with creative fire. We could call it the forms of love, an unprecedented artistic exploration. Sounds like a long-term, ambitious project. We have time, she smiled, holding my hand. We have so much time. In that moment, I felt a powerful surge of creative inspiration, just like when I first began my artistic career years ago, filled with passion and possibility. But this time, I was not facing the blank canvas alone. 2 years later, the Forms of Love series was exhibited simultaneously in the world's 5 greatest art museums, causing an unprecedented sensation. Critics called it a milestone in contemporary art history, blending painting, sculpture, jewelry design, and other art forms to create an entirely new artistic language. The final piece of the exhibition was titled Eternal Ring, a massive circular canvas depicting every form of love and life, familial, platonic, romantic, and the love for art itself. The edge of the canvas was inlaid with gemstones of various sizes, and under certain lighting, these gems would cast light onto specific parts of the canvas, revealing another hidden layer of patterns. The centerpiece of this work is a massive blood amber. Through intricate optical design, the light it projects perfectly outlines two embracing figures. One is Mary, the other is Nicole, symbolizing the intersection of past and present, the fusion of memory and rebirth. On the closing day of the exhibition, in front of the Eternal Ring, I knelt on one knee and proposed to Nicole. The ring was crafted from the very blood amber Mary had once prepared for me, designed by my own hand and fashioned by the finest jeweler. This ring carries the memories of the past and the hopes for the future, I whispered softly. Nicole, will you be the eternal ring in my life? Her tears sparkled under the spotlight. I will. Amidst the cheers, I remembered what Mary once said. Love does not disappear. It merely changes its form. Yes, love does not disappear. It exists in memories, in art, in every rebirth and new beginning. It traverses time and crosses space, like that blood amber which, after millions of years, still shines, forever retaining the original warmth and brilliance of life. This is the answer I have been searching for all along. Between loss and gain, between seeking and rebirth, love remains constant, only appearing in different forms along the journey of life. And all we need to do is bravely accept this gift, no matter how it comes to us. On the day of the wedding, the sky was a clear, washed blue. Beneath the ancient oak tree that had watched over Mary, we exchanged our vows. A gentle breeze stirred, making the leaves whisper as if blessings were drifting in from another world. No matter when or where, Nicole said softly, we'll always remember that it was she who brought us together. Yes, I squeezed her hand, and we will always cherish this gift. In the brilliant sunlight, the blood amber ring gleamed, radiant as life itself, enduring the passage of time, yet still shining bright.